Hey, hey, hope everyone's doing well. That's on a Friday night. Gosh, what a night. Oh, what a night. Let me know if you sang the song when you saw the headline. I'm super curious. But I hope that your week went incredibly well. And I know that personally speaking, just as a heads up, if you want to connect and comment where I can see it, there's going to be a link up above or below, depending on where you see this at, wherever on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. So let's just hang out for a little bit tonight. Let's talk about stuff. I know that some people will be out on date night tonight. Um, but I dedicated Friday nights to come on here and just chat about forgiveness, grief, and walking free of regret. Because for those of you who don't know, my dad was murdered when I was 18 years old, and it was a wild ride, very wild ride. I contemplated suicide when I was 16, and during those 2 years is when God worked on teaching me how to walk in love with Him. It was intense. And again, if y'all are tuning in, the link above or below, it should be like something from StreamYard. So go ahead and hit that. Now, also too, what you'll see is a newsletter on LinkedIn, and I'm gonna circle back to my story. I haven't forgotten, but cool newsletter there. So go check it out when you can. But I remember in those 2 years, I man, it was so difficult too. My dad, if it was anybody that my dad was so stubborn. Um, I remember certain things that would happen or take place, and it was a very long 2 years is what I'm getting at. And I know that between the time that I contemplated suicide and when my dad was murdered, I remember there being such restoration that happened that it just blew me away. I had um, I had no idea the amount of work it would take to restore our relationship going into it. I just knew that in my heart, I wanted to repair the relationship with my dad while he was here. And I mean, at that time, I didn't think anything was going to happen to him. To me, my dad was invincible. And I remember I remember all the different conversations we would have. It was just so all over the place too. It was one day it was good, one day it was bad, one day it was just, I mean, oh my goodness gracious, like unbearable. I don't know if any of you have ever had that type of conversation with anyone like that. And um, when it comes to really, when it comes down to connecting with somebody, building a bridge with someone who is just difficult, very, very difficult. And it took me a little while. I'm gonna share this out over on LinkedIn really quick. And as I'm sharing my story, please drop any comments or questions. Hey Willie, what's up, brother? And it's interesting that with repairing that relationship with him, that over time it takes work. And there were a lot of things. Great, yeah, we got some people over tuning in on LinkedIn. Woohoo! But as I'm sharing my story, I'm just gonna just share from my heart. It's just my style. And so if you have any questions and whoops, sorry, there's no mouse. If you have any questions or anything that just, if something jumps out to you, comment. If you have anything that you're just like, wait a minute, wait, what? Hold on. He just went from here to here to here. I want to have a conversation with you. Okay. So I'm not on here on live stream just for the heck of it. I want to actually have a discussion with you. I don't like having one-way conversations. And so for me, like it gets boring. I like discussion. I don't like being like, oh yeah, I like the guy who talks, like to hear himself talk. Like that's just not me. You know what I mean? And so kind of going back to the story, I just wanted to throw that disclaimer in there. But it's interesting because I remember every day being a battle. It felt like World War Four. Say that 10 times fast. World War Four, hardcore parkour. But I remember every single day, every single challenge that would happen, and it would just, I mean, oh, me swallowing my pride felt like I was ripping myself in half. I'll just say that. And comment if you can relate to that. Whenever somebody is just like, oh, you just see they're so stubborn. They're always right, no matter what goes on. And you just wonder, what in the world is going on through their head? Or two, like what kind of earmuffs do they have on? Like something's going in here that just flat out is not what I'm saying. I know what I mean. Lord Jesus, I know what I mean. You know, you'll comment if you can relate. But my dad was that kind of person, and oh Lord have mercy. And see, I love doing these live streams because it just goes in any direction. But like it, when it comes to this that story, I remember over those 2 years, it was so difficult because of all the abuse. There were so many things that when I went to go and repair that relationship, there were so many scars and so much trauma that was happening, and that had happened that were starting to flare up. And as the circumstance called for me to take whatever action or whatever the case may be, and I remember that correlation happening. You know, whenever I needed to be more assertive or to speak up, or if I needed to draw a boundary or to stand my ground on that boundary. Don't get me started on that, right? Right. And so there's so much that goes on that takes place. And side note, Willie, you started your third degree connection. We need to fix that. But but it's interesting because there's so many different things that would happen and take place that so fast and all at once, and it took me by surprise at times. You know, I would think to myself, man, I wonder if this is the same guy that I knew when I was younger. Just to give y'all an example, you know, when I got my GED, I was 16, and you know, it was right when I was 16, and then I remember my dad. This is just me being vulnerable, but I remember my dad kicking me out of my own party to have prostitutes and then have a party afterwards with drug dealers. That happened. Like that legitimately happened. And I'm in disbelief. I called my mom. I called it like I'm like I still live at home with my mom. You know, I'm like, you know, not now, but that was then. I know I look like I'm like super younger, but baby face syndrome. But um, jokes aside, though, when I called my mom and I told her what had happened, she was blown away. I was heartbroken. I couldn't believe that one guy that I thought got me, that understood at that time. I couldn't see, I couldn't see if, like the land from the smoke, so to speak. I was so wrapped up in all of the material stuff that I couldn't really see, the forest for. I missed the forest for the trees. That's what I'm getting at. And and y'all comment too, like, and let me know if you're yeah, on anything as far as you're tuning in. As I'm sharing my story, I'm sharing the story of like some of the things that happened between when I contemplated suicide to when my dad was murdered, and how we restored our relationship, and some of the things that happened along the way. So if anything jumps out, if you want to know about anything, just please drop a comment. But especially when it comes to grief and recovery, there's a lot of stuff that during sharing my story that I just want to highlight. And so this is a weekly thing on Friday, and I want to take Fridays because a lot of times people are not going through the best of times, and most people do go out and have a great time, celebrate whatever the case may be. But sometimes people just have a hard week, and I it's kind of a circle back. Um, I remember calling my mom. She came pick me up, and I was just in disbelief. I remember being so mad at him. And I mean, not just like, oh darn, that sucked. No, I mean seething, rageful, angry. I didn't have very, very healthy thoughts over the following weeks. And I remember getting arrested for drugs. And the ironic part was that was the night that I contemplated suicide. It was May 6th, 2008. And it's interesting. It was very it was a very unique night because that was the night where I was like, you know what? I just feel like a burden. I feel like I'm always going to mess up. I never know what to do. And so I just, you know what? I'm just done causing pain, because just going to give you all context. My mom was a single parent after my parents divorced when I was 10. And I'm the oldest of three siblings. And so my siblings are 5 years apart. And so at the time of my parents' divorce, I was 10, my sister was 5, my brother was just being born. So with that being said, I'm gonna drink a little bit of something, a liquid, so the mouth is starting to dry out. Hang on. But anywho, I remember all that happening, and then I just felt like I was a burden. it felt like I just, no matter what I did or what I could try or what I was, just, giving a shot to, I was not succeeding. I felt like an absolute idiot. And so with all that being said, I remember I calling a friend of mine, I called a buddy, and I didn't want to commit suicide, but it definitely felt like the only option to not, be a screw up anymore. And ironically enough, my buddy came down, talked me out of it. And that was a night of, I mean, for those of you who are not Christian, that's totally fine. I'm a Christian. That's my faith. But I said, you know what, God, if you're for real, let's do this. And what's interesting is that the desire for drugs and just like the codependency and everything just dropped. Like it wasn't like my whole life didn't change, like turn around like Doctor Strange and everything. Like woo, 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 another craziness happened. Something inside of me changed, and the desire for anything that is outside of myself just kind of faded away, and a desire to like, and that's the thing. I want you to listen to that closely. Our desires, the desire to do differently started to bubble up. The desire to want to walk in freedom and not have a stinking thinking filter type of thing. I couldn't really put words to it. Didn't want I just didn't want what I had. I wanted something full of life that was healthier. It was hard to put words to it. I just wanted something that was a breath of fresh air. I was just like, you know what? I just had peace. With all that being said, I had peace on the inside. And it's interesting because I remember when I started to understand what it took to forgive myself. It was a journey, still is. And what's unique is, of course, my faith is in a higher power. And of course, I believe that with Jesus Christ, I can overcome anything. And when it comes to repairing the relationship with my dad, man, oh man, oh man, that man, definitely, as the common vernacular would say, gave me a run for my money. Bless the Lord. But at the end of the day, hurt people, or they try to. It's in their nature. It's because let's work backwards from it. The golden rule: love your neighbor as you love yourself. Right? The definition's in the statement. You just got to read it backwards. This is where my ADHD and everything, my imagination kicks in. Thank God. But like, as you love yourself, you're going to love your neighbor. And we can switch the words out too, right? Forgive yourself. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm over here. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Oh, disconnect. But no, but as you forgive yourself, you'll forgive your neighbor. And it's interesting because that's how we're hardwired. Here's the thing: misery loves company, right? Why? Drop a comment. Let me know. Like, what do you think? Like, why do miserable people love company? Like, just drop a comment. Let me know. Like, I know there's like 4 people watching on LinkedIn right now. But let me know your comments. I'm really curious because even I don't care if there's one person on here, it's worth it. But I'm very curious to know. And this, like I said, this is a discussion. I'm just rambling. And if anything jumps out, Cole, drop a comment, question, whatsoever. Um, I want to hear your thoughts because but I'm not going to move further until we get a comment. Willie, if you're still watching, let me know. All the other ones that you're watching, hey, let me know. So kind of wait it out for a little bit. The reason why I don't want to move on until we get a comment or two, because I really truly mean it when I say this is a discussion, and I'm going to wait until we get at least one comment from someone, and it's a-okay if you're watching. You don't have to sit there like the wallflower at all. It's okay. Anyway. Do Bobby, exactly. This right here, to feel they are not alone. Nailed it right out of the gate. Man, Bobby with the home run. Bro, that is dead center on. And that's something that is so key, because at the end of the day, as we love ourselves, we'll love other people. And it's something that I remember that with my dad. Boy, oh boy. I mean, ooh, boundaries. And then when boundaries, man, oh man. Someone else said this. Let me see. Who was that over there? Ooh. Okay, so the chat's a little delayed over on LinkedIn. If you haven't yet, hit the link above or below so that way I can see it over on StreamYard. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and like 5 other places on Facebook, so it would be super helpful. And irony is that on LinkedIn, it's a little delayed too. So, Bobby, if that was you, absolutely dead center on. It's weird. On LinkedIn, the comments are a little delayed. On StreamYard, it gets it like that. Like, you gotta love tech. But miserable people love company because they need someone to validate their misery and tell them that it's not their fault. Pity party! Pity party over here. Pity party over there. Like, right? Think about it. Like, and that was one of the biggest things, man. I like, and yeah, that's the craziest thing is that where like you have to be careful with it because it's like quicksand, right? Like, come on. And it's interesting, man. Like, what's wild is that when you change during that transition, people in shame, people motivated by shame and misery, will try to remind you of your history because that's not you. What are you trying to do better? That's not. You've always done this. What are you talking about? Can I get a high five? Susan, there you are. Okay, cool. Now it popped up. See, that's how much of a delay it is. That's like a 5-minute delay. Oh my Lord, Atlanta, that is terrible. Oh my goodness. But and that's what's so key. And it's so interesting too. See what I mean? I wasn't kidding. StreamYard got it first, and then LinkedIn's like, hey, over here, just kidding. But what's so unique is that, that just nails it on the head. Because when you're and you have to those boundaries keep that structure, and that's what's so wild about it is that boundaries are like the sheetrock, in the house. Yeah, any of y'all in real estate, you know what I'm talking about. Without those load bearing walls, right? I don't know about where the house would be at. All the cosmetic walls don't matter. The boundaries, the flattery, right? All of the things are like, oh yeah, it's great, it's cute, everything in public, but what's behind closed doors, what's by like hanging out, when no one's watching, that's where your true character shines. And what's interesting too is that like I had to think to myself, I'm like, how can a 16-year-old kid whose father's definition of respect doesn't start until 40. How in the world can I get that man to listen to me? Good Lord. And what's interesting is that I remember scripture. And again, this is just eat the hay, spit the sticks whenever I throw the scripture if you want to. But Paul told Timothy, he said that correct the elder through humility. I'm like, and well, he said humility and servanthood, and I didn't get the full. I'm paraphrasing it, but he said that through humility you'll be able to correct the elderly, and I thought that was interesting because I'm like, huh. And then also too, my marketing mind kicks in too because at the end of the day, marketing is all about people and psychology, right? And so, it's like my marketing brain kicks in, because I've been doing that for the past 10 years. And it's ironic because a lot of the stuff that tried to destroy me prepared me. And it's interesting when it comes down to consumer psychology and everything with all of it, like it all was born from here. Like my desire to understand how people tick, do people watching, how they operate, like what would make them do this to get this result, right? A lot of it was born from me and trying to figure out if my dad was in a good mood or not. But it was channeled, and you talk about sharpened, Lord have mercy, sharpened through trying to figure out how in the world can I get a rhino to move with the flick of a finger. That's about all I got. Lord have mercy. Like, I'm serious. I felt this tall at that time to my dad. My dad had done a really good job of intimidating me and just bullying me. And just making me feel 2 inches tall growing up. And I'm telling you, like, it was to the max. Like when I tell you that I was seriously considering taking a full bottle of melatonin, I'm not kidding. I did not. I didn't have any self-worth, any self-esteem. I didn't care about what purpose I had. I didn't even care to even think about that. I just wanted to survive, you know. And oh, hey, Linda, sorry, I just saw your comment. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the ironic part, is that with everything. Sorry, pause really quick. Everyone is tuning in on other channels right now. Hit the link or above or below the video if you want me to see your comments. I'm over on StreamYard. I was over on LinkedIn, but I trust StreamYard now because LinkedIn has like a literal 2-minute delay. And this is just a comment over here, so that way I can see you up on here, the live stream as well. But let me make sure I went back over and okay, Susan, cool. I just make sure I got your name right. I was like, Linda doesn't sound right. I'm like, hold on a second. But I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, just instinctively, how can I get this be a big behemoth of a mountain of a man to listen and shut up? And I got to thinking, I'm like, he doesn't want to be around me unless I'm working, because that's 16, 17 at the time. I should be, producing something, doing, being good enough. Yeah, that was my dad's definition of being good enough was always working. And unfortunately, that's, we'll get to that in a second, but it has a lot to do with why I do what I do today, along with like our other projects. But interestingly enough, I remember I was like, he doesn't want to be around me, but he wants to be around my sister and my little brother. And my mom wants nothing to do with him. Like, I don't blame her. And my sister wanted to be over there, and my little brother did too. But I remember my dad telling the judge, fast forward a long time from now, or like a year from this incident of the story I'm telling you, he told the judge that she was in contempt of court after testing positive for a drug. That's how stubborn my dad was. So bring that context back into what I'm saying. Thinking to myself, he wants to be around my brother and sister, and my sister and brother wants to be around him, right? And I'm like, how in the world? Boundaries. Boundaries were my negotiation ticket with my dad. And ironically enough, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just like, you know what? I was in Bible school at the time too, because I just needed to understand love and forgiveness and how to walk in love with someone. And Joyce Meyer said this perfectly. She said that how to be in a relationship with someone where you affect them, AFFECT, affect them, like affect, make an impact without them infecting you. With that in mind, locked and loaded. And I'm like, Dad, I got it. If you want to be around Anna and Bennett, you can't talk trash about Mom or around. Deal? Yeah, whatever. I kid you not. My heart was beating out of my chest. I mean, I was trembling. Everything in me. I mean, my adrenaline was shaking. I'm like, what just happened? And I mean, it was the first step of many. And the reason why I'm sharing this story, I guess, tonight is because on Sunday's newsletter, if you haven't joined it yet, I'm going to share something about that led up to all of this, why it was so difficult, what happened. And there's going to be some real and raw moments in the upcoming weeks with the newsletter, because about to get real transparent with everyone, because at the end of the day, it's about time that people know that they're not struggling alone. And I remember hanging up the phone, talking with my dad. I was sweating. I remember this. And Willie Diggs, actually, who commented earlier, he's actually here in Huntsville. He's known me for a very long time. And brother, telling you. I mean, I was lightheaded. I couldn't believe I couldn't believe my dad agreed. Like, are you serious? Like, oh my goodness. Like, I was just blown away. And if you guys want to, please share this video out. I'd love to share the message out with people and, just share the importance of forgiveness because, I remember, in the upcoming newsletter, you're gonna have some more context as to um, why forgiveness was so important for me and why I was so determined not to become the person that hurt me, not the person I hated, because at that point, yeah, I didn't have any nice feelings for my dad. Not one bit. Not one bit. And man, oh man, oh man. Like, I mean, sorry, I'll dry lip right there. I'm in Alabama, so I don't know where everyone's at. Drop where your city's at. I'm just really curious. But my body doesn't react to all the up and down weather. I promise you. We have like 1 or 2 good days of sunny weather here in Huntsville, and we pay for it, whether it's rain, cold, or just, I mean, winds. Like, it's wild. But kind of circling back. So I went back and I hung up the phone with my dad. I was lightheaded, sweaty, and I remember shaking to where I couldn't believe it. I had just put my head down on the desk that I had. And I remember crying because I was so afraid of what my dad was going to say prior, but I knew it had to be done. There's an old saying that the end result of what you're looking for, the finished work, is sown in peace by those who decide to make it. The real context is the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make it. What's interesting is how can you like sowing a seed, right? Like every tree has a seed, right? That seed is a finished work, like, but it comes out, right? You got to nurture it. You got to everything with it. You have to make sure that gets enough watering. You got to have enough sunlight. Have some time to breathe. Lord have mercy. At the same time, it's interesting to see where oh, Bobby, you're in Huntsville too. Awesome, man. But it's interesting to see how in the world, when you decide to be a peacemaker and a bridge builder with someone, the finished work, you're already injecting that in there. Now with time, it's just going to come to fruition. Think about that. You do your part. If they do theirs, things can be restored. Depends on if they want to do their part. And genuinely, if you want to do yours. Because at the end of the day, making peace is not a feeling. I wish it was. Believe you me. Lord have mercy. Life would be so much easier. Sorry, I was mentioning the bipolar weather in Alabama because my skin dries out so easily. But first world problems. But no, it's sorry, random. But no, and it's interesting because, like, think about sewing in a finished work. Like, imagine, like, think about that. When you decide to make peace with someone, whether you're right or wrong, despite what was done to you, if there's a way that you can get that person to listen, if you have their ear, you have their heart. And interestingly enough, is that if you decide to stick in there, not just deciding to make peace, but speaking the potential, speaking what they can be, what they should be, what they could be, not trying to shame them, but setting different expectations on them. I did that at 16 with my dad. My dad needed that with someone. after he passed away, I mean, Bobby, there's been Bobby Willie, I'm telling you, like there's been I found a forum. You won't believe it. You probably would. But crazier things that have happened in the world today, right? But I found a forum 2 years after he passed. 30 people were talking about all the horrible things that he had done to them, business wise, personal, whatever. Like, at the end of the day, look at Paul, right? Dude was killing people, and Jesus gave him a second chance. Like, huh? Okay, got it. But at the same time, my dad needed somebody to stand in the gap for him, to see the potential in him and see what he could be, to see what he didn't see in himself. I always tell my wife this. I always tell anybody this, that whoever's a client or anything, like a lot of times we get in our own way so much. Just borrow some of my belief in you until you got your own. You're good. You know? And interestingly enough, I started to treat my dad differently. I decided to see his potential instead of his past, instead of his history. I decided to treat him accordingly to his purpose instead of just being cynical about his mistakes. It's hard. It is not easy. I'm being straight up. I got creative with my cussing with my dad, and so many times, man. I kid you not. So, to give context to this, my dad and I would cuss each other out so commonly that we called it loud conversations. I got it from him. And I'm telling you, oh man, it was so hard to swallow my pride. Golly. But will I say that if it was worth it? Man. I remember seeing those changes, minor changes. But if you knew my dad, you'd know how big of a victory that was. Because he was changing, transforming. And it's interesting too, because after he passed away, after we got the phone call of everything, it was practice. Forgiving him. Dang, Bobby, it just popped up with your comment over on LinkedIn about when you dropped your comment like, oh my goodness, 6 minutes ago. And StreamYard saw it. LinkedIn got to step their game up. But anyway, so it's worth it. See, that's how bad of ADHD I got. But I promise you I'm better at it now. But when it came to swallowing my pride and just deciding to stick in there. Man. It was not easy whatsoever. And it's interesting because everything inside of me was screaming, saying, stop, you're going to enable him, you're going to give him permission to do it again, blah 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 blah, whatever the case was. It was the furthest thing from the truth. And I remember those feelings like they were yesterday. Oh goodness, I remember that. And I will never forget how intense those feelings were. Because at the end of the day, Oh, 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 oh. uh, I had a fine balance between, because I was new to putting boundaries in place, and making peace, putting boundaries in place. Like, how do you balance giving them an inch and then taking a mile? And I mean, I'm like, oh my goodness, I was like a tornado all the time, because I'm always trying to figure out. I'm like, man, what is too much? Like, where do I draw the line? Where do I say it? I'm like, no, that's not happening. I'm sorry. And this gets to where I was crying, laughing earlier. Is that loud conversations, right? Got that context. I remember, in some of those conversations, literally telling my dad, "Do you want to see Anna and Bennett?" Okay, listen. And I mean, probably wasn't the best thing to do, but I had my bait hooked, and I know my boundary, and I was like, you know what? If he doesn't want to respect the boundary, right? He doesn't want to listen. Play dirty. I'm not gonna lie, like, let's play dirty. And I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, it's like that was my only leverage that I had, and I realized, I'm like, at the end of the day, how can I get this? How can I get this mountain of a man to listen to someone like me? And that was my thought. I'm like, be resourceful. Use what you got. So, Anna and Ben, if you're watching this, yeah, I used you. But hey, for the good. But no, I love y'all. Oh man. But no, it was interesting, because what happened was transformation started to happen. He started to listen, and our relationship started to improve. Our communication became better. And I remember working with him on the job site, working with him throughout everything. And it was very, very hard to have to have something like that in play, to have something like that in place, to be able to even to have that ability, to have him actually listen. It was wild. I'm not gonna lie, it was brand new. It was the new normal to me. I'll say that, the new normal. And I didn't know how to process it at first. I had to do a victory lap a couple times, and I had to tell mom. I'm like, Mom, Dad, listen to me. She almost dropped her dinner at that point. You did what? I'm telling you, I'm not saying this to be funny. I'm saying that's because how powerful it is that when you stick in there and you draw the boundary, understand what's going to make sure that they listen, and if they're an incredibly difficult person and you value that relationship and you want to stick in there with them, you gotta have leverage. Gotta, that's something that you gotta have something that they want, but they're gonna listen. Ironically enough, oh my goodness. And I remember, I remember, I remember that feeling illegal at one point, and then it feeling really, really good, because on one side of it, I didn't want to be like the bad guy, right? And then on the other side of it, I'm like, man, I am not about to be hurt by this dude again. No, thank you. And in understanding the difference of, here's a boundary that I need this person to respect. Then what happened was it started to evolve into, okay, now we can have a level conversation, eyeball to eyeball, no disrespect, no condescension, no intimidation, none of that. I kid you not. Like, and y'all drop something in the comments. I know y'all know old head. I know we all got parents and grandparents. Like, we all know that generation had a hard time apologizing. Let's be real. Rare, man. I mean, I thank God for people who can, who can apologize and own up to their responsibilities, or their mistakes. But goodness gracious, man, a lot of folks that are in the older generation, I mean, it was like, yeah, whatever. And my dad was that kind of guy. Oh my gosh. Like, are you for real? Hey, Dad, it's 2 + 2. Yeah, whatever. Like, yeah, he was 4. Shut up. It's simple. Oh, goodness gracious. And I didn't choose to forgive my dad for his sake. I chose to forgive my dad for my sake. It's interesting enough is that when you focus on something, you become it. And ironically enough, on a whole nother note, when it comes to forgiveness, and we'll close out the live stream tonight with this. And I appreciate everyone who's tuned in and commented and engaged. You guys have been awesome. And it's just these are going to be weekly, and especially tune into the newsletter if you haven't yet. We've got almost 1,400 subscribers already, organically, and we're just encouraging so many people. Just want to breathe life into people, and just through share my story. And I know I'm not alone, and we're going to be hosting some workshops here soon, which is going to be awesome. So keep an eye out for that. And so anyway, with forgiving, the reason why I needed to forgive my dad was because down the road, anybody that would have reminded me of my dad in any which way, for shape or form, it could have been his business, his hair, his glasses. They could have one arm, like whatever. Like anything that anyone could have shared a common trait, resembled my dad, just whatever, reminded me of him. I didn't want to be reminded of the pain. I didn't want to, I didn't want that to come back and haunt me. And that's something that I want to encourage you, is closing out this live stream tonight at 10:30 p.m. at night. I want to encourage everyone to consider to forgive. I know it's irritating. I know whatever that person's done. And I mean, shoot, I got a text message from somebody who darn near scammed me. Client, let alone. My goodness. And I'm just like, I just love you. Don't feed it. And at the end of the day, it's like, you don't need to hold on to it, because a lot of times we hold on to it because it's familiar. And a lot of times too is that we have built things around that as well to protect ourselves. We don't let go because a lot of our infrastructure that we built around us, business wise, it could be anything. A lot of it can be tied to that. And so it can be scary. So take it just one step at a time, but do that work on your heart. Because if you don't, anything or anyone that reminds you or resembles that person who hurt you, at the end of the day, you're going to be reminded of that, and your walls are going to go up, and nothing else is going to matter at that point. And it's part of the reason why a lot of times things that happen unrelated to anything else or yourself, it goes through a filter in someone else's mind, is because they have something deeply rooted on the inside of their heart. So I just want to encourage you, please consider to forgive and start on that work. If you haven't if you don't know where to start, grab a journal. Seriously, get the thoughts out of your head. The most straightforward and simple way to attack your thought, like all of those reminders and everything that just keep popping up, get out of your head. And there's a lot of times where things will just keep coming back up, and you just sit back, and I'm just like, forgive them because they don't know what they do. And people, this is something that always helps me out. People do what they believe is the right thing, regardless. Until they understand differently, they're going to do what they believe is the right thing to do. And that's something that, understanding that and being okay with it, took me a long time to process and swallow that horse pill, because I love to think the best of people. And sometimes it's hard. People will see that you care and take advantage of it. And you have to protect yourself too. You know, it's that old saying, be slow to speak and quick to listen, right? And so I hope tonight was awesome, encouraging and as awesome for you as it was for me. Um, Susan, Bobby, Willie, everyone that tuned in on the other channels, thank you so much for carving out time. And those of you who are catching the replay, please drop your comments as you are tuning in and share this out to encourage someone, because at the end of the day, we are all going through something. If we can both heal together, but also learn how to support other people, because that's the other side of this coin when it comes to those workshops I was telling you about. If we can learn how to support people and not cross boundaries, not cross lines, and not do things unknowingly. A lot of times things are well intended, but a lot of times it just comes off as a cliche or just cheesy, And so at the end of the day, we're here. We're here to connect. And if you can't tell, I lost my train of thought. But now I'm just really excited just to be able to do this on a weekly basis. When it comes down to just all of the things that are coming, just stay tuned for it, and please go join the newsletter. Link should be above or below with the LinkedIn link. And so go join. I mean, we're about to hit 1,400 subscribers. If you can push it up to that, come on, let's do it. But also share this out to everyone, and please let me know in the comments how I can pray for you, but also to how I can support you. Sorry, voice cracked on that one. How I can support you, not support you. Got to enunciate my syllables, but yeah, just grateful to be able to be here, just share my story, and just be of encouragement to those who will listen. So looking forward to it, and see you soon.